Matriz, alternative virtual reality.
All right, so I'm in this forest nice spring thing with Robin Arnott from Andromeda Entertainment. And Robin, we have on this podcast before and also on the YouTube channel AltVR, which this is hosted on, been talking a lot about your application and sort of the vision that's gone beyond it as well. I mean, in terms of like the technodelic, cyberdelic stuff, it's really fascinating. So I would, could you explain us what SoundSelf, this application, is about, and just a bit of your own history in developing it?
Yeah, sounds good. I'd be happy to. It took a really long time to make because there's really nothing that's existed like it before in the virtual or digital space. I mean, there have been many technologies like it that are quite ancient. You know, people have been using all of their technological means available to them to give themselves altered states of consciousness for, I mean, who knows how long, you know? It seems it's not even a uniquely human thing. Dolphins do this as well with jellyfish. So, but it did take a long time to produce because doing that with a video game, you know, we know how to do that with chemicals, but doing that with a video game was something very novel. But the idea came to me more or less in a flash of inspiration at Burning Man, and I had my first oneness experience, which is just a unitive. You know, there's no way of describing it. Just like the boundaries of who I thought I was dissolved, and gratefully, you know, that brought me onto a meditative path, and but it also inspired me to create something that I just knew it's like the instructions for how to create something that could give other people that access to unitive states of consciousness. Just appeared in my mind, and all I had to do was create it. As though that's a small thing. It's not, but that was really the birth of SoundSelf. And now it's out, and we're working on we've done some research on it and found that it does produce altered states of consciousness in a way that is in many ways comparable with psilocybin. Now, these organic compounds I think will never be truly replaced, but and nor should we try to, but it does produce absolutely an altering and a dissolving of boundaries. And yeah, that SoundSelf for you. It uses your voice, I'll tell you that. It uses your voice. And that's essential because most video games, you know, you're kind of using your fingers.
Yeah.
Even in VR, you know, VR gets you more embodied, and that's great. But your fingers are an extension of your mind. Your hands as well. Or my wings. I guess I've got wings right now.
Yes, you do.
And yeah, but your voice is, I mean, many spiritual traditions have known this for a long time. That's why chanting is such a regular thing in spiritual traditions. So the voice is a very powerful way to, it's like it's a place where you feel yourself very deeply, where you feel yourself as vibration. Your voice is a vibration. And it is a place also that exists sort of at the cusp, at the boundary between self and other, because you can both hear it out in the world and feel it in your body, and yourself is creating it. So SoundSelf uses the voice as a way to draw your attention towards that, through that boundary, I suppose you could say. It's kind of hard to describe this stuff, but you've experienced it, right?
Yeah, I have, and it's I like the distinction that you're drawing there, that it's simultaneously, I mean, like in between self and other, kind of like I mean, another thing that is often used and of course connected to this within meditation disciplines for the exact same purpose is the breath. I mean, you are simultaneously controlling it and not controlling it. So there is a sense of the breath as well as the voice breaking the traditional dichotomy or dualism of you being inside your skin and outside your skin, etc. And yeah, I mean, I didn't really have any chanting experience before SoundSelf, I even think. So it was very unusual for me to basically, yeah, use my voice in that way. But I had always imagined the potential for it, and definitely enjoyed it immensely, because there is this vibration too that is, and when it's informing the environment around you or the visuals around you, this synesthesia or synchronization is really interesting.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And it is something that we can uniquely do with modern technology.
Yeah.
I think that I really like looking at our tools and seeing, okay, how can this serve a really deep need in a way that has not been served before? And I'm don't get me wrong, I think that meditation apps are so on. I think they're a wonderful way of scaling this practice, but to ask every medium, hey, how can you be used to deepen a relationship with self? Because it is all self, like our technologies are absolutely an expression of that. So just trying to create a mirror.
Yes.
You know what I mean? It's like that's what art does as well, as a mirror to us. Usually to our personality or to some part of the human condition or something. I just watched Saving Private Ryan again a few days ago, and boy, did it shake me, man. That movie is a mirror to violence and bravery and many high values and many low values. There's this one scene in it that touched deeply, which is where, I don't know if you remember this, there's the one character, the member of the group who's a Jew, and he gets into a knife fight with a German towards the end of the movie. Do you remember that?
I just have to publicly admit that movies, I'm just so bad at watching things. But
sure.
I have heard about it, but please go on. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll just briefly. He's out of ammunition, and he's alone with this German who's also out of ammunition, and they get into a knife fight, and he dies. He gets killed. But the way it's so intimate, like the way, like this German is whispering at him shh, 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 as he's killing him, because that's what warriors do. So, I don't know. There's something so intimate about it, and that scene, for some reason, this time really struck something like deep and tragic and loving and hard in me. It was like a reflection of something. It was, but it was beautiful.
Yeah.
And I think that that's what art does, is it reflects something to us, and I would love to see us explore the various reflections that are possible in virtual reality. The lose condition here is we get lost in virtual reality, but there's a win condition, which is we don't get lost in it, but we use it to reflect something about ourselves to ourselves.
Yeah, I love that perspective that, I mean, what we're creating is an expression of ourselves. And this is, I mean, within media philosophy and just philosophy of technology, a really stressed point. I mean, for instance, Bernard Stiegler viewed technology as some sort of exteriorization of ourselves, which we, upon having exteriorized the technology from our minds, internalized it through the imagery of what we have exteriorized. So there's this feedback loop through which humanity is sort of finding itself through the technology.
That's interesting.
And yeah, it is. And I think that having these loops, I mean, informing the technology and being informed by the technology again is sort of, meeting yourself, viewing the universe as some sort of way that that you're seeing yourself, that what is outside you isn't something that is sort of antithetical to who you are, but actually trying to... I have one example, by the way, of what you're saying, with like this potential for intimacy, or I mean, even sensitivity in regards to the virtual, because one of my friends who I've met through like the VR stuff and who was on the podcast, he mentioned your app and he was doing a review on it for his YouTube channel, but he basically decided not posting it because it felt sort of private and personal, the
Oh wow,
experience that he had had, and I thought that was interesting.
that is interesting. That is interesting. as a businessman, I'm like, oh no, I've made something so effective it can't be spread. And I've encountered that before, like we were videotaping people's responses to it, and I got this amazing response. Somebody who was crying coming out of it,
Yeah.
and he just had no. And then as soon as he remembered that I was recording, he said, "Oh, don't
Shit.
use this video. This
Yeah.
is way too. I was not expecting to be brought into such a like an intimate space and to be so vulnerable. Please do not use that video." So that was frustrating because it was the most beautiful. I mean, this guy was just so moved by his experience.
Yeah.
Ultimately, he let us use the audio of it,
Oh, okay,
which is
that's
what
nice.
if you watch our trailer. If you watch our trailer, the one we have two trailers. We have a VR teaser and we have a trailer. And the trailer is a man sitting in front of a computer screen and starting to play it. And so at some point in that trailer, you hear audio of this guy saying, I have one feeling through my body, I'm vibrating. So he let us use the audio for the trailer, and I'm very grateful for that. But I mean, go listen to that. I want to encourage your listeners.
Yeah,
go look
I'll
up
try to
SoundSelf
find the
trailer.
links, or you can send them to me, and I'll add it in the description. If that's a good preview for the app, then that would be really great. By the way, I should also mention to those who are listening or watching that you were kind enough to give us a key for this competition, which we actually launched today, so that people can,
cool.
So that you can actually win one of the keys. But yeah, I've tried the application. It's really, really interesting, and it's obvious to see that it's a product of long-term development. But when I read this prior to reviewing the app, I mean, I couldn't imagine how has that journey been, because it was like a considerable number of years. I can't remember, but could you let us into the process? How has this been?
Huh. Oh man, as an artist, you get your identity wound up in your work.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of how it gets born. It's like parents find this with children. You're in some ways your identity is wound up with your children, and I don't think that's a bad thing. I think that's part of what makes it work. That's how, there's an attachment and there's a binding and a bonding, and I think that absolutely happens with artists and their work, and it is an incredible. I think it's an incredible, I know some artists who can create amazing things and don't get so personally attached to what they're building, and I have so much respect for that. I don't know how to do that yet, but yeah, so my identity really got wound up in that, which is I think why it took so long to make, because I didn't want to release it until it was really ready. But because it was so strange, so different, it took a very, very long time, because we didn't have decades or even years or even anything. But let's say you're making a first-person shooter or a platformer, you have decades and decades of knowledge to build on.
We
that's
had true.
In a way, we had with millennia, because okay, there's mandalas, there's singing bowls, there's chanting, but porting those methodologies to gaming and virtual reality, that's not a simple task. So it took a long time, and there were a lot of pitfalls. There was this one long period where we had a bug that would just very rarely, not often, very, very rarely. Normally it would be fine. You'd just be playing the game and listening to the experience and using your voice and so on. But once in a blue moon, it would just scream in your ear.
Oh,
like this horrible demon noise. And because it happened so rarely, it took a long time to figure out what was going on.
Yeah.
So there were that's a more technical one, but from a design perspective as well, at one point I was really chasing intensity, and SoundSelf became a very intense experience, but not necessarily a positive experience for a lot of people. Some people had bad trips.
Yeah.
And I realized, okay, intensity is not the thing. It's something else. It's peace. It's dissolving, and that requires a lot more focus on beauty. So it's been a winding path. I'm really grateful it's out now, and it's not like the path is stopped. It's just now the path is about, okay, how do we bring this to people? And how do we bring this to people? How do we bring this to people's lives? And not only SoundSelf, but also, other experiences that are transformative in nature. So, Vision Agency is a great example. They're a company, Edward Jones's company, and they're making transformative experiences in VR.
Okay,
very,
cool.
very interested in, how do we use VR and gaming in order to give people experiences of something deeper?
Yeah.
So that's how the journey's continuing for me.
That's interesting. So, I mean, regarding that, I mean, I think that one of the great benefits of actually having released this like on the open market or on Steam, I mean, I'm sure you've had a lot of people in a lot of different scenarios trying this over the year and getting feedback, but there is probably a different kind of feedback that you're getting from actually releasing this in an open way that can also sort of help instruct the process. But I'm wondering, are you thinking of like furthering the focus on SoundSelf? Or, I mean, what are you doing? And Andromeda Entertainment is a thing. So are you developing new stuff? Are you focusing on this? Or how is your life now in regards to sort of finishing or releasing this project?
Well, the first thing we're focusing on is porting SoundSelf to.
Yes.
We're looking at a couple of different VR platforms. Because right now it's basically
so
PC
mobile
VR only.
Quest.
PC.
Would that be
We'll see.
an option? Yeah.
That we'll see. That's a harder challenge technically than you might imagine.
Yeah.
But the next thing is, so it's porting it. That's for consumers. But it's also, how do we use this, bring this to people through businesses? Wellness centers, clinics, and so on.
Yeah.
So we're beginning some clinical research on it. And then the third thing is, okay, so their experiences like SoundSelf have a different set of requirements to like a normal game, like it's or let me rephrase that, a different set of potentials and a different set of needs in terms of meeting a market. It's like, okay, This isn't just about entertainment and distraction. This is about transformation, and the experience can be amplified by having a facilitator, or by having and it can fit into certain therapeutic environments, and so on.
Yes,
and this is not only true of sound. This is true of other games that have a transformative approach. Excuse me.
No, that's fine.
So, excuse me, sorry, got a little bit of cough. So
you did
we're building the economic infrastructure to distribute these sorts of experiences to environments that are not gamers.
Yes.
Oh shoot, I'm doing all these anyway. And that would be useful for other games as well. Other games that are transformative in nature and that go beyond gaming as a distraction.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, at this YouTube channel, we are basically interested in everything that you're doing, because the whole thing, I mean, we're called Alt VR, so we want to be alternative virtual reality, because we're not just interested in the games, we're basically not covering them, but what kind of VR stuff is trying to do other things than mere games? For instance, trying to change the relationship that you have to your world, or just nature experiences, anything that is sort of trying to push this. And right now, VR is small. It's small even for games. It is even smaller for those kind of transformative experiences that are being provided. And I
Yes.
think that this will only keep rising and rising and rising, and especially within the therapeutics, because I mean, there's already known. I have a friend who is writing a blog piece right now for. We also have like this text philosophy blog that's called Matrice, and he's writing a piece on like eco psychology, and basically, yeah, I think there's great potential there as well, being informed by the like virtual nature that you're experiencing, and how this can engage this feedback loop that your application is basically, yeah, covering. So this alternative focus on VR is I mean, you're really one of the few companies in the world. I mean, of course, there are a lot of startups that is seeing. Yeah, what does it mean to launch a VR app now? Who are we going to contact? There's a combination of clinics, the open market, etc. But it's nothing is set in stone here.
Yeah, it's the Wild West.
Yeah,
it really is,
really
which is fun for me. You know, if you're for a certain kind of personality, it's a lot of fun because you get to create something.
Yeah.
And that's what we're, you know, like I get to. There is no way right now. Like, let's say you're a VR developer or even a game developer, and you've developed a game that can, I don't know, give you some really profound psychological experience of releasing grief or something that goes deeper than telling a story. You know, because you're right, it's a feedback loop, and that feedback loop, when it uses not only your mind but your body, and not only your body but actually your whole relationship with reality, with identity, with what you are. And by identity, I just don't mean, you know, what kind of person you are. I mean what it is to be incorporated in this world. You know, corporeal. To be manifest. So what are you? You know. Like let's say you create a video game that has. Let me go back a little bit. Yeah, so you put in that feedback loop something that really challenges some fundamental notions of reality, and that's the power of gaming. You know,
Yeah.
we don't need to use that feedback loop just to give you a power fantasy or something like that. We've seen in independent games in the last 12 years or so that games can be a real powerful vector for emotional experiences. I remember I cried when I played Journey. And even before that, Shadow of the Colossus moved me deeply. So, but we could go even deeper than that. You know, that's their emotions. But then your ontological experience of reality, you can include that in the feedback loop. You know.
Yeah.
And so, let's say you create a game that goes deeper than, and it has a potential to really transform people's lives. Like maybe it does some hypnosis thing and allows them to let go of generations of grief or something like that, which is possible. There's no reason that would be impossible. You know, that's possible with hypnosis. That's possible with many spiritual exercises. You could take any of those ideas and put them into a game feedback loop and it would work. So, what you going to do with that? You know, there's not an economic infrastructure for that yet. So you're not going to be able to make money. And you might be able to pour yourself into this, but that's the world we live in right now. And so to me, it's actually very exciting to be like, okay, I'm going to create the economic infrastructure here.
Yeah.
So that these totally transformative experiences that are scalable because they're digital.
Absolutely.
We're going to create a system whereby people can make a living off of this and distribute these experiences into, you know, wellness facilities and clinics and so on, so that people can have these very powerful experiences. That's fun to me. That's so fun to me.
Yes, it is.
I mean, there's no security in it.
No. Yeah, it's a good point. Yeah, there really isn't any sort of, but it's going to blow up very, very quickly. And then it will be interesting to have sort of been there in some sort of way or manner to actually be able to, yeah, I mean, sow some seeds, basically. I was talking to, or I think I basically just saw a tweet by Lucas Risotto, who we also had on this podcast before. And he also said that one of the benefits of having sort of the economy out of VR, and that's really, I mean, one of the few benefits, because as you're saying, there's there's really not much money in VR right now, but that is that we have people that are steered by their passions, right? And that
Yeah.
also goes to say from, I mean, your like year-long project, that in the beginning this will only be motivated by the sheer passion that people put into their project, but there really is a need for it to make people make a living out of this, absolutely, because we want to be able to keep doing this. This is awesome. So there needs to be resources to make people make value, like you've done with SoundSelf, and yeah, I'm excited to see where this ends, basically, or starts.
You know, Lucas makes a really good point, which is that, and this point is being made in plant medicine circles. So you've got, first you have the innovators coming into the space, and people who are really driven by passion, and as long as it's not profitable, the psychopaths won't come in. So that is pretty nice to see. It's like, you know, you have a lot of really cool, unique VR experiences, and they're not made by this kind of psychopathic growth imperative.
Right.
Which isn't to say the psychopathic institutions aren't, you know, deeply involved in creating something that is, I think, apocalyptic. I won't name names, but you know, anybody
Yeah.
on your can imagine that there are big players in this thing who are advancing an agenda that I don't think brings, that I think could be cataclysmic to the human relationship with spirit and reality and nature, and could really reduce us to gosh, wow, this is a dark cloud, but it's real. You know, it's something we got to look at.
Yeah, it is. It is. There is some,
but and that it's not profitable right now. You're right. So most of the people who are actively making stuff are really in it for passion and curiosity.
Yeah, and this has its upsides and downsides, but I think also that, I mean, VR chat, honestly, I've said this before, but I think that if I had any kind of money at all, that I would invest in some VR chat stocks. I don't even know if that's possible, because I think that these kind of open environments that, I mean, in regards to what you were saying as well, these are between platforms as well, right? So that if there is this sort of divide at some point in the future where we really need to have this sort of more free kind of VR chat will be beyond it, and it's just this general platform of social VR, which, yeah, it just seems free. But I have a question for you, and it's basically something that you mentioned very early on. I was thinking of, because I was on this podcast myself, or this YouTube interview regarding Cyberdelics or Technodelics and my opinions. And one of the questions that I was asked was if I thought that Cyberdelics or Technodelics in some way would be able to replace the psychedelic experience. And my answer was sort of positive and negative. I didn't think that psychedelics or Cyberdelics have the same possibility to, within a single session, be able to rupture you from your environment and give you that sort of lesson, but that maybe it can be a meditation tool over time. Yeah, but I'm basically curious to hear your answer. What do you think that the role of Cyberdelics can be in its sort of maximal realization in the future?
That's a really, really, really good question. I'm going to try to clap at it. There we go. I did an interview with Kim Pai. I've done a few interviews with Kim Pai, and he always asks,
Nice.
what is the ultimate potential of VR?
Yeah.
That's always his closing question. And I agree. I don't think we should be looking to these technological interventions to replace organic compounds. There's something deeply intimate about eating a mushroom that grew out of the earth and that is giving you its spirit. Or ayahuasca, when you drink ayahuasca, you are really connecting with the plant spirit. So I don't think there's any replacing that, and I don't think talking about replacing it is it's an interesting conversation, but I don't think it's really a valuable goal. What is interesting, I think, is here's how I see it: is psychedelics are entering the American consciousness again, and they're instructing us, they're teaching us. They've certainly taught me. They can teach an architect how to make a building that brings you to a place of wisdom just through, its construction of corridors and open spaces and give you a sense of awe, Like a psychedelic can teach you how to create a building that will take you somewhere that the psychedelic wisdom, without the psychedelic wisdom, it couldn't,
Yeah.
So it's the same with business or with science. There have been. I don't think Einstein was eating psilocybes, but he was certainly having spiritual experiences, and those spiritual experiences were guiding his scientific mind.
Yeah.
And so I think it's the same with technology, not only games, but technology as a whole. Like, we can let psychedelic wisdom teach us how to do this in a way that is more human, more integral with the whole of reality, with the whole with the whole spectrum of living reality. The trees, the plants, the mushrooms are insect friends. We can take these lessons, and it can teach us how to just make more honest work in whatever domain it is. And I think if you cut down to it, that's really what's going on here. Is psychedelics are teaching us how to create more real, more universally relevant. I mean, universally, I don't mean universal to the human spirit. I mean universal to the spirit of life.
Yeah.
And it looks, from our very limited frame of what dualistic human consciousness looks like, all of these experiences look like they can just fit into one little bucket, and you call that psychedelics, psychedelic experiences, But the vast array of experiences you can have through means like psychedelics and means like meditation and so on is actually much larger than the array of experiences that I think you can have in just dualistic consciousness. There is a huge domain of experience that is possible. You just think like what it's like to be a rock or a tree, and this like normal human consciousness is just like one tiny sliver of what's possible. And actually, psychedelics and meditation break us out of that. So
Yes.
I think it's more honest to describe these experiences as opening us up beyond some of the limitations of that little experience, and to call that psychedelic is just because we don't really have a better word for that.
Yeah, I mean, the sort of maybe the normal term for everything that goes on outside of ourselves in this disruptive manner would be God, right? Which is this very tense and laden term. Yeah,
I love that word.
Yeah,
Love
yeah,
God.
I too.
Love
Yeah,
God.
I love it. I love it. Absolutely. It's nice to have a concept for that which is breaking out of your own understanding, which you just have to sort of give into. That's at least
I
how
love
I
the
use the term.
I love the tension. There's so much, the word God is
Yeah.
not only evocative, but it is, because it is so evocative, there's a lot of dispute around the word, dispute around the practices, and now we have a more secular culture than ever, which makes the concept of God even more tense.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah. So, and to me, that tension actually gives that word magic and power.
Yes.
It's like I just learned this. When you swear, you say fuck.
Yeah.
You're using a totally different part of your brain than when you speak normally. And so when monkeys in the trees are making the sounds they make that indicate there's an eagle, there's a cat, it's actually using the same brain systems as we use to swear.
Really? Oh.
So when you hear a monkey go whatever, you can basically translate that to fuck. And it's actually, and you get it. You get it. Like, you know what that's like.
Yeah, of course.
So they're not saying there's a snake, there's an eagle. They're saying fuck. Yeah. So those are words that are more evocative, because they're actually they tune into something bigger than concepts. Yeah. And I think the word God is like that as well. And the more taboo there is around the word God, the more it becomes like that. Which is why I love the word God.
It's true. It's the best. It's the best word and term available. No, I love that analysis. The whole fact that it's so easy to get misunderstood, labeled, whatever. That just brings potency to what you're. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. And so continuing on that with that, how does God express itself through nature? That's obvious.
Yeah.
God expresses God's self through nature and through our stories and through our bodies. I guess, through our like little avatars here, sure. But then you ask the question, how does God express and discover and know itself? Know myself would be the way to put it. Not the personal I, but the universal I. How does God know ourselves? Through every means, even means that seems so devoid of the very flow of life that we associate with God, like nature. There's nothing more evocative of awe and humility and God than like go to a redwood forest or a mountain range, something, Fuck. But how do we do that? How do we do that with plastic and silicone and not how do we do that? Because the how is discovering itself, but God does want to know itself through all of these means. So how do we allow that to express itself through these places? I think it can't be resisted.
Right. Yeah.
Well, my headset's about to die, so if you have any...
You fell out briefly, but that's fine. I mean, honestly, this was a really, really, really great conversation. It's been super interesting to hear your thoughts behind this, because, I mean, of course, I imagine someone releasing this kind of application would would have some sort of thoughts behind this and how we are approaching sort of like the dualism and the psychedelic experience. So it was really interesting hearing your reflections. I don't really know if I have any other questions. The only thing is, it would be nice to do this again once you have some other projects, some other reflections or whatever. I think this was really interesting, and thank you.
Thank you very much. And I'll add one last few things, hoping my system doesn't die and the owl disappears. But for your audience, if you're interested in this, please go to SoundSelf.com or Steam and look up SoundSelf, or Oculus and look up SoundSelf. It doesn't require virtual reality. It works great on a screen in a dark room.
Right, I didn't know that.
Especially if you project it. Oh yeah, it's fantastic.
Oh, cool.
The virtual reality, like,
then I
is
can
a
show it
dark
to
room you
everyone.
can put on your head.
Yeah.
Yeah. I definitely recommend small amounts of very readily available plant medicine if it's legal in your state.
Yes.
But also, we are talking right now in advance of two events that are coming up in the immediate future, late August, early September 2020, which is the Venice Biennale, which SoundSelf has been programmed into. And so if you participate in the Venice Biennale, you'll be able to just play it for free through them. But also Burning Man, the multiverse.
Right,
which is
I
a very
heard that was
interesting
going to go
application.
virtual. Yes, yes.
Yes. So if you look up, SoundSelf can be reached through the Bridge experience there, and we're making the experience available for burners for that whole week. And easiest thing to do is just go to soundself.com, and then you'll be able to find everything you're looking for.
That's awesome. I can also inform that I'll just link everything, go through what you've been saying, and link everything below in the description, so it's easy to find out. And we'll definitely be checking out Burning Man on this channel. All right, thanks a lot, Robin. This was really interesting talk.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye.